Hi, Lyssa deHart here, and today I want to talk with you about a topic that is really near and dear to my heart. Apparently, lots of topics are near and dear to my heart lately, and this is definitely one of them. It is really what ICF assessors want you to know about submitting your performance evaluation for an ICF assessment. And so let's get into it. The first thing that I think every ICF assessor would want you to understand is the idea of time. And there's several ways that this plays out. One is how long your recording is. There are a lot of people who are submitting performance reviews and evaluations, and they are taking it right up to the 59 minute, 59 second mark. And there's nothing wrong with this. You have 60 minutes to do your recording in, but there are folks that push it right on past the 60 minutes and they go into the 65, 70-ish minutes. And a couple things I think are important to know about this. One, ICF assessors stop assessing at the 60-minute mark. So if you're doing all of your facilitating client growth in the last 5 minutes of your conversation, and that's all in the, or mostly in the over 60-minute mark, you're not going to be assessed on any of those competencies or markers, which is really going to limit how many markers that the coach assessor can give you when it comes to facilitating client growth. You might have done an amazing job, but we won't know. It's a little like a tree falling in a forest. If no one hears it, did it make a sound? Please, please, please don't go over that 60-minute mark, because what you do, how you demonstrate your coaching, will be lost on the assessor assessing your recording. And so that's not really good for you. And honestly, the assessor can't do a full job assessing your recording if they can't hear the whole thing. I don't know that there's a perfect amount of time that one person could do a recording in that would be like, ideally, all client calls should be this long for recording, for submission for your performance evaluation. I do know it needs to be more than 20 minutes and less than 60. I think from my own perspective that the probably magic number is somewhere between 40 and 45 minutes max. This gives you time to demonstrate your coaching skills, which is really what the recording is about. It's not about whether or not your client had a great outcome or whether or not your client was, awesome, which your client probably was awesome. It's really a performance evaluation of you, of how you create agreements, of how you develop trust and safety within the conversation, about how you maintain presence or listen actively or evoke awareness, and ultimately how you facilitate client growth. So you need to be able to demonstrate all these competencies within that amount of time. And most people, when you're practicing and doing lots of mentor coaching, you can get a lot done in a 45-minute session. This does a second thing, which is the other element of time that I think is really important, this being my time. So for me to listen to a 30 to 45 minute call is going to take me, obviously, 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the length of the call. But for me to then go through the call again with the transcript in front of me and listen to it again and start to highlight things and start to capture the beginning understanding of what competencies are being demonstrated is going to take me way more than 30 to 45 minutes. It's probably going to take me an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the call. And some questions that coaches ask may only have one marker that they're demonstrating, while others might have multiple markers that they're demonstrating. And so as I start to rack and stack and bring together all the things that I'm seeing in your work, this takes time. And then, because most assessors don't want to send something back that has no feedback, and we're asked to give you feedback, we need to write up feedback around what we saw that you did well, what your strengths are, but also what your growth opportunities are. And this also takes time. So the average amount of time that I probably spend on an assessment is somewhere between 3 and 4 hours. That's on a 35 to 45 minute recording. So if you add to that another 20-ish minutes or 15 to 20-ish minutes, plus all the other stuff that I'm doing, that means it takes even more time. So I might be 5 or 6 hours into a 60-minute call by the time I'm finally ready to submit it back to ICF with my assessment. But what I would ask you to consider is that you can demonstrate your coaching acumen in under 60 minutes. That is not a hard lift for a coach who really understands the competencies and is demonstrating them well. The second piece that I think is really important is when you're thinking about the recording itself. Yes, I think the sweet spot's somewhere between 40 and 45 minutes to demonstrate your coaching skills. Other assessors and other mentor coaches are going to think something different, but this is just Lyssa's 2 cents on it. 40 to 45 minutes is a really good amount of time to demonstrate all the competencies very effectively. And I think the other piece is people who go longer than an hour, who start shaving off and editing the recording. ICF is very clear, no editing your recording. This isn't something where you are going to just edit out the extra pauses. You want those pauses. In fact, one of the markers that we're looking for is that the coach allows silence. So there's a big silence because you asked a really powerful question and your client is really thinking about it. Please do not edit that out. That is something that we're looking for that demonstrates partnership. So editing it out means that you lose that beautiful moment in the coaching where the client was really doing the heavy lifting of the coaching process. The other thing about the recordings is please get a clean recording. Make sure that you're in a space where your children or your animals or the leaf blower isn't like right in the recording with you. I've had people that sounded like they were driving their cars at times, or where their client is clearly also having conversations with other people while they're also having their coaching. Choose your client well. Choose a client who can be in place for the 40 minutes to an hour that you need to get a really good recording. If you don't have good access to a recording mechanism like Zoom because you don't have a good Wi-Fi, use something like the coaching conference calling where you can have the conversation on the phone and get a good recording. But you want as clean a recording as possible. You want both you and the client to be in a place where you can get the best recording possible. Otherwise, it gets very distracting for your assessor listening to side conversations, weird things happening, horns in the background, all these sort of things. So this is part of agreement setting with our clients before we even do the recording, where we're really paying attention to, where will we be when we do this recording on this date and time? And let's try and make it as clean as possible. It's not that the occasional dog bark or baby is going to be a problem, but too much of that makes it very distracting to listen to. Which really brings me to transcripts. And transcripts are fundamentally the way that we not only hear your coaching, but also really read it so that we're getting the information in 2 different ways, which is crucially important because we're really wanting to break down what question you asked, but also what the client offered you. And it's just so much easier to see that on a transcript than it is to think you're hearing it, and maybe you are and maybe you're not. It just, the transcript makes all the difference. And lately there's been a rise of all sorts of Otter.ai or Fathom, and you're getting all these different transcripts. And often what happens on those transcripts is you get something that is super choppy and isn't a very good quality transcript, which is fine if you are not submitting it for something really important. But when it comes to things that are really important, and I believe that the performance evaluation is really important, you really need to clean it up. And I'll talk about this in 1 second. I'm going to show you through what it is that we see as assessors so that you can be aware of it and prepare your transcripts so they don't look like this. But before we do, I also want to take a moment to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting this channel. Thank you for being part of this community. If you haven't already liked, subscribed, and left a comment, please know that you can. Always share with us ideas that you have about different topics that would be of interest to you. We really want this to be a thriving community, and we want to put out really good content. So again, give a like, give a subscribe, give a thumbs up, give a comment in the comments below, and we look forward to being able to provide you with as much resources as we can. So thank you again for being here. You're blowing my mind with the way you guys are helping the YouTube channel, and I absolutely appreciate your support. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming. So what I see often, and this often is what happens in something like Otter or Fathom, you get a coaching transcript that looks like the second one, where every other word or so, the AI is creating coach, 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 and then client, 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 client. The problem with this is that one of the things that we do in assessments is we capture timestamps. When you submit a transcript that has every word is got its own timestamp, we have to do one of two things. We have to either fix it for you, which most of us are not going to do, frankly, because of that whole first thing around time and how much time it already takes, or we have to put all of those timestamps in there. And that is overwhelming because we're writing like 00, 02, 03, 04. It's too much. So clean up your transcripts. I put at the very top of this, right up here, I put what a transcript needs to look like. It needs to look clean. It needs to show what I said, and then what the client said, and then what I said. Not like this. I don't want to have boop, 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 boop all the way down. The other one that recently happened was I got a transcript like this one right here. And on that transcript, what the coach had done when they submitted the transcript was they clearly used Ray notes, woot, woot for Ray notes, but clean it up. Get rid of all of your comments and all of your assessment of your work. Do not submit that to me. Part of being an assessor is I want to get the clean transcript, but then I'm going to make the decision about whether or not this particular question meets that particular competency. So I don't need the coach to deliver that with the transcript to me. I can figure that out for myself. That's what we do. And I'm not sure how other people would feel about this one, but I know for myself, one of the things that was kind of funny in my mind was that the coach had chosen different competencies. They were not using the PCC markers. They were using the competencies in general. And I wasn't in agreement with the choices that they made, which made me concerned about whether or not they really understood the competencies or how the competencies are demonstrated through the PCC markers. This puts a little weird red flag in your head, like this coach doesn't really fully understand. And so don't do that to yourself. Nobody's asking you to assess your own work, not when you're submitting for your performance evaluation. Just go with this one right here, right there, clean transcripts. if you are going or yeah, put little parentheses around it. Don't make it its own thing, because it's not going to count for you anyway. I don't count a competency on a yeah. It's not a question. And so I'm, probably not going to every time you say yeah, I'm not going to count competencies on that. So suck them into what the client is saying, just put little parentheses or brackets around them so that I know they're you and you know they're you, and I can just read what the client had to say as I'm listening to the recording. And again, if you're using Ray Notes, I love Ray Notes. I think Ray Notes has gives you the opportunity to do some really good self-reflective work prior to submitting your recording. And you can totally clean Ray Notes up so that it is a beautiful, pristine transcript to submit to ICF for your performance review. I'm throwing this out here for mentor coaches specifically. Please have a mentor coach when you're submitting for a PCC or MCC. I would say ACC also, but especially for your PCC or MCC, that you have a second set of ears on that call to help discern whether or not it's close enough or really far away. This is really the purpose of mentor coaching, is that you start to break down what your client is offering and how you're holding the conversation. And for mentor coaches, please support your mentor coach clients to clean up and have perfect transcripts along with their recordings when they're submitting, so that they don't end up not passing because there wasn't enough actual coaching demonstrated. One of the things that I see, especially at the PCC level, is that a lot of coaches spend time still being very strategic, solution focused, driving towards fixing a problem. And in the words of Marsha Reynolds, coach the person, not the problem. Or in my language, we're only ever coaching the person's relationship to the situation, not the situation itself. And you can see coaches get really dug into ideas of, P&L, or like what their boss is going to do or say or think, or what their spouse or their kid is going to do or say or think. And the coach has drifted away from what is really important, underlying what the client is talking about. So I have a video on themes that show up in coaching, and I'd say that might be a good video to start to pay attention to, because you want to get below the surface, especially starting at PCC, where you need to begin to really demonstrate not just solution-focused coaching, grow model coaching, but really starting to develop your capacity to be a partner with your clients. So I'll add at the end of the video here a link to that video on the underlying themes that I think will be helpful. One other thing that I really want to mention real quickly is there is a lot of time that coaches are spending putting in declarations around confidentiality and explanations of what coaching is. The assumption from an assessor's point of view is that you should have a signed release with you and the client saying, yes, I agree to be coached on a recording for the purposes of mentor coaching, and possibly also for you to submit for an ICF credential. So if you do not have a release that you are currently using, you can follow the link below to my website and get a copy of a release that you can make your own, but you need to have the release. And if you're going to say anything at the beginning of the recording that you do, you can keep it very quick and very clean. Thank you so much for your willingness to record this video with me for my ICF credential and for mentor coaching. Thanks so much for doing that for me. That alone will demonstrate that you have this agreement with your client. Because if you have a client that goes, what are we doing? I didn't know any of this, then you have a problem. So getting that release of information so that you can just have them sign it ahead of time, and then keeping it short and sweet at the beginning is probably going to be super helpful for you. So I hope this was useful today. I really enjoyed spending time with you, and I really hope that this supports you as you do your performance recording for your evaluation for ACC, PCC, or MCC. All right, everyone, cheers.